And here's what I know about the Pitta type. When we're out of balance, inflammation shows up first in our digestive system and in our skin. I need to tell you about the most embarrassing moment of my road warrior days. I was in the middle of a pitch meeting with an orthopedic surgeon down in Miami. I had driven 2 hours to get there through traffic. I had my supplements all laid out on his desk, and I was explaining the anti-inflammatory benefits of turmeric. And my stomach started rumbling and making noises, and these were not little rumbles. I'm talking about a full-on whale song. Like my digestive system had decided to join the conversation. And I tried to keep talking. I tried to act like it wasn't happening. But here's the thing. I wasn't just embarrassed because it was unprofessional. I was irritated. Irritated that I had to talk over my grumbling stomach when I finally got this meeting with this person. Because I'd eaten clean that morning. I'd had my usual breakfast. Something that should have been completely fine. And yet, there I was, bloated, uncomfortable, my stomach protesting loudly in the middle of a business meeting. Does this sound familiar? Maybe your version isn't a pitch meeting. Maybe it's 2 p.m. at your desk with your pants feeling tighter than they did at breakfast. Maybe it's a dinner out where you spend the whole meal worried about how you're going to feel afterwards. I've done that. Or mornings where you wake up flat, but by evening you look 6 months pregnant. That happened to me a few weeks ago. And everyone keeps telling you, it's just something you ate. Try eliminating dairy. Try going gluten-free. Try eating smaller meals maybe. Here's a couple tips. But here's what I've learned in over a decade of working with women who've been dealing with bloating. Your bloating isn't just what you ate. It's a message. It's a signal from your gut that something deeper is going on. And that something deeper, it's inflammation. I'm Dr. Shivani Gupta, and this is the Inflammation Code podcast. Today, we're decoding why your bloating keeps showing up, even when you're doing everything right. Because once you understand what your gut is actually trying to tell you, then everything changes. So before we dive into the gut connection, I need you to understand why this matters so much. Bloating isn't just uncomfortable. It's not just cosmetic. It's actually one of those earliest warning signs that your gut lining is under stress. And when your gut lining is under stress, inflammation follows. Here's what we know from the research. Nearly 70% of your immune system lives in or around your digestive tract. It's called gut-associated lymphoid tissue. We call that GALT for short. So this means your gut and your immune system are in constant conversation together. So when your gut lining is supported, when it's functioning at that best level and that barrier is where it's meant to be and supported, then your immune system stays calm. Inflammation stays regulated. But when that barrier becomes stressed, then things change. Then your undigested food particles start slipping through into your bloodstream. Your immune system sees them as invaders. It creates an inflammatory response. And that inflammatory response, it doesn't just stay in your gut. It becomes systemic. It goes everywhere. And that is why so many women who I work with, they say, I have bloating and fatigue. I have bloating and brain fog. I have bloating and joint pain. I have bloating and anxiety. They're not separate problems. They're all expressions of that same root cause, gut-driven inflammation. And the bloating, that's just the symptom that you can see and feel most obviously. It's your body's way of waving a flag and saying something's out of balance here. pay attention. Let me take you back to that moment in that Miami office when I realized that for myself. After that meeting, which, by the way, I still closed the sale because I'm stubborn like that. I push. I sat in my car in this ridiculous traffic and I was just frustrated because I was doing everything right. I was eating clean. I was taking my own supplements. I was managing stress as best I could. And my body was still acting up. I called my husband and I said, I don't know what's happening. Why is my stomach doing this all the time? And he said something that stopped me cold. He said, Shivani, what would you tell a client who came to you with this? And I always love that question because it really makes me pause. And when he said that, it clicked. I would tell them to stop looking at the bloating as the problem and start looking at what's driving it. So I did what I do with all my clients. I mapped it out. I always have to map things out and write things down and make a list and understand what is it. I looked at my elemental design, which is my constitution based on the 5 elements in Ayurveda. I'm predominantly a Pitta type, fire, a little bit of water. And here's what I know about the Pitta type. When we're out of balance, inflammation shows up first in our digestive system and in our skin. And so the fire element, when aggravated, really creates this excess heat in our system. And that heat manifests as inflammation in the gut lining, in the joints, in the skin. My bloating wasn't random. It was my fire element telling me you're pushing too hard. You're living in stress mode. And I'm inflamed because of it. But it wasn't just my constitution. There were other factors that were stacking up. First, chronic stress. I was in fight or flight mode constantly. I was driving from office to office, dealing with rejection, worried about how I was going to grow my company if I didn't build a team for this job. And when you're in that state, your body diverts blood flow away from your digestion. It literally says, we don't have time to digest right now. We're trying to survive. And so even when I ate perfectly clean food, my body couldn't break it down properly. That undigested food just sat there, fermenting, creating gas, creating bloating. In Ayurveda, we call this ama, this toxic residue that accumulates when our digestion is compromised. And you can actually see ama on your tongue in the morning. So that white or yellow coating that you see if you stick your tongue out, that's ama. It's a visible sign that your digestive fire is weak and undigested matter is building up inside of you. This is why tongue scraping is one of the simplest, most powerful daily practices in Ayurveda. You scrape that coating off first thing in the morning, before you drink any water, before you even brush your teeth, you can tongue scrape. And you're literally removing accumulated toxins that would otherwise be reabsorbed into your system. And when ama builds up in the gut, it doesn't just cause bloating. It causes and creates systemic inflammation. It clogs our channels. It interferes with our nutrient absorption. It's the root of so many of our imbalances. And for me, ama was definitely accumulating. My tongue showed it every morning. Now, Ayurveda has many practices, protocols, daily lifestyle tips that prevent us from ending up in this place. Simple things like watch your meal sizes. In Ayurveda, we say that you should fill your stomach 1/3 with food, 1/3 with liquid, and 1/3 empty for digestion to happen properly. You should avoid drinking water right before or after your meals. This dilutes your digestive fire. You can sip warm water during your meals if needed, but don't flood your stomach. Avoid ice-cold protein shakes with too many ingredient types mixed together. Cold dampens our agni, that digestive fire, and too many ingredients at once, it overwhelms your digestive capacity. So start your day sipping warm water or warm ginger tea. This kindles your digestive fire and it prepares your system for the day ahead. These are just a few of the recommendations that you can build into your weekly rhythm that will slowly ease the bloating and discomfort and prevent it for good. Second, blood sugar instability. I was skipping meals because I was too busy, then eating whatever I could grab between meetings. My blood sugar was on a roller coaster. And research shows that blood sugar can directly affect our gut barrier integrity. When your glucose levels spike repeatedly, it creates inflammation in the gut lining. So over time, that lining becomes more permeable. There's honestly tons of ways to make it more permeable, which is frustrating. And third, our microbiome imbalance. I had been on antibiotics earlier that year for a sinus infection. And while antibiotics can be life-saving, they don't discriminate. They wipe out the good bacteria along with the bad. My gut microbiome, the community of beneficial bacteria that help regulate my immune system, was depleted. And when beneficial bacteria decline, opportunistic organisms increase. The bad guys just want to take up all the space and wreak havoc. And then our inflammatory signaling goes up. That's what was happening to me. Now, let me tell you about Rachel, a client of mine, because her story will probably sound even more familiar. Rachel came to me at 46. She was in perimenopause, and she told me, Dr. Shivani, I wake up with a flat stomach. By 10 a.m., I look pregnant. By evening, I cannot button my pants. And I'm eating the same things I've always eaten. She had been to her gastroenterologist. He'd run some tests. Everything came back normal, he told her. It's probably just stress. Try a probiotic. She tried the probiotic. It didn't help. She tried eliminating gluten. It helped a little bit, but the bloating still came back. She tried eliminating dairy. Same thing. So she got frustrated, confused. She started thinking that maybe it really was all in her head. But here's what I saw when I sat down with her. Rachel wasn't just dealing with bloating. She also had afternoon fatigue that hit like a wall. She had brain fog that made her forget words mid-conversation. She had joint stiffness in her hands every morning. She had new food sensitivities that seemed to pop up out of nowhere. And anxiety that felt like a low hum under her skin all day. She thought these were all separate problems, but they weren't. They were all branches of the same root, gut-driven inflammation. When I mapped out Rachel's elemental design, I discovered she was predominantly Vata Pitta, so air, fire, and a little water. And this is where things got really interesting, because bloating shows up differently depending on your elemental design. So let me break this down for you. If you're predominantly Vata, which is air and space, your bloating tends to be irregular and unpredictable. Some days you're fine. Other days you're massively bloated for no reason. You tend toward gas, constipation that alternates with loose stools and a lot of anxiety around eating. Your bloating gets worse with stress and overthinking. Irregular meal times, cold, raw, or dry foods, and too much travel or change. Vata types need rhythm, warmth, and grounding more than anything else. If you're predominantly Pitta, fire, and water, then your bloating shows up with heat. So it's often accompanied by heartburn, acid reflux, or a burning sensation. You might also notice skin inflammation. So acne, rashes, or redness at the same time as those digestive issues. Your bloating gets worse with spicy, fried, or acidic foods, skipping meals, which makes you hangry, overworking and pushing yourself too hard, and hot weather or heated environments. So Pitta types need cooling and calming practices, and they have to learn how to soften their intensity. If you're predominantly Kapha, earth and water, then your bloating is often sluggish and heavy. You wake up feeling puffy. Your digestion feels slow and congested. You might also struggle with sinus congestion, water retention, and feeling mentally foggy. Your bloating gets worse with heavy, oily, or dairy-rich foods. And overeating or eating late at night, a lack of movement, and damp, cold weather can affect you as well. So Kapha types need stimulation, they need movement, they need lighter foods to keep their digestion fired up. Now, most of us are not just one element. We're combinations of these. So Rachel was Vata Pitta, air and fire, which meant that her bloating was irregular, the Vata piece of that, but also came with inflammation and heat, which is the Pitta piece. So she needed both grounding and cooling routines to help calm that Vata energy. And she needed anti-inflammatory support to cool the Pitta. So this is why cookie cutter protocols don't really work. Your bloating has its own signature based on your unique elemental makeup. And once you understand your pattern, you can address it at the root. Now, if you're listening to this and thinking, wait, which type am I? I want you to pause right now and go take the elemental design quiz. It's free. It'll take about 5 minutes. You can go to drshivani.com and the quiz is right there. And once you know your primary element, everything I teach you starts to click into place. You'll understand why certain foods bloat you and others don't. Why stress affects your digestion more than it seems to affect other people's. Why the wellness advice that works for your friend, she's doing great with it, doesn't work for you. Your elemental design is your body's user manual. And you can't heal what you don't understand. So go take the quiz at drshivani.com and write down your results. And as you keep listening to this podcast, you'll start to see how every piece of advice I can bring to you is becoming customized for your unique design. Okay, back to Rachel. So Rachel's bloating wasn't just about food. It was about her entire system being out of rhythm. Her nervous system was stuck in overdrive. That's the Vata piece. Her digestion was irregular because she ate at different times of every day. Also Vata. Her gut lining was inflamed from years of stress and pushing too hard. That's the Pitta piece. Her microbiome was depleted. And all that was creating was this chronic low-grade inflammation that showed up as bloating, but also as fatigue, brain fog, joint pain, and anxiety. She needed to address the system, not just the symptom. And she needed to address it in a way that honored her specific Vata Pitta constitution. So let's talk about what actually causes bloating and inflammation to show up together. Because once you understand the mechanism, you stop blaming yourself and you start addressing what's actually happening. Your intestinal lining is supposed to function like a selective screen. It lets nutrients pass through to your bloodstream while it's keeping out bacteria, toxins, and undigested food particles. When it's working properly, it's amazing. But when that lining becomes stressed, through chronic stress, poor sleep, blood sugar spikes, alcohol, processed foods, medication, then those tight junctions between the cells start to loosen. And in Ayurveda, we've understood for thousands of years that the gut is the seat of health or disease. We call it Agni, the digestive fire. When Agni is strong, you digest your food completely. You extract your nutrients. You eliminate waste entirely. When Agni is weak, food doesn't fully break down. Ama, or this toxin residue, starts to accumulate. And that ama creates inflammation. Modern science now calls this leaky gut or increased intestinal permeability. But the concept is the same. When your gut lining is compromised, inflammation follows. And here's what happens step by step. First, the gut barrier becomes permeable. Undigested food particles, bacteria, all that toxin stuff slips through into your bloodstream. Then the immune system kicks in. It sees these particles as invaders. It creates antibodies. It triggers inflammation. And this isn't happening once after one meal. It's actually happening multiple times a day, meal after meal, for months or years. Next, that inflammation becomes systemic. It doesn't stay localized in the gut. It travels through your bloodstream. It affects your joints, creating stiffness and pain. It crosses the blood-brain barrier, creating brain fog and mood changes. It damages your mitochondria, creating fatigue. It disrupts your hormones, affecting your sleep, your weight, your mood. And then the loop perpetuates itself. Chronic stress keeps cortisol elevated, which makes our gut permeability worse. And then poor sleep prevents gut lining repair, so the barrier stays compromised. Then our blood sugar swings increase the inflammatory signaling, which damages that gut lining even further. It's a vicious cycle. And the bloating, it's one of those most visible signs that shows us that this cycle we're in is still going on. And that's why so many women try probiotics and get frustrated when they don't work. Because bloating and inflammation are rarely caused by bacterial imbalance alone. Gut regulation involves multiple layers: barrier integrity, digestive enzyme sufficiency, which most of us struggle with, microbiome diversity, which is super important, nervous system tone, inflammatory balance. And if your nervous system is chronically activated, then digestion slows down, no matter how many probiotics you take. So if your sleep is inconsistent, your microbiome resilience declines, even with the best probiotic. If your blood sugar fluctuates widely, inflammatory signaling will increase, regardless of your supplement stack. And isolated solutions rarely stabilize our systemic issues. So we need this integrated approach. And that's what we're going to talk about next. So back to Rachel. Once we identified that her bloating was driven by gut inflammation and that gut inflammation was driven by stress, blood sugar instability, and microbiome depletion, we didn't just hand her a probiotic and send her on her way. We addressed the system, and here's what we did. First, we mapped her elemental design, and we aligned her life to her Ayurvedic rhythms. For Rachel's Vata-Pitta constitution, this meant eating at consistent times every day. Vata types need routine so desperately. So we had her eat her largest meal at midday when her digestive fire is the strongest, had her eating warm cooked foods instead of cold salads and cold smoothies because Vata types can't handle raw and cold, and had grounding, calming practices to balance the air element's tendency towards anxiety. Second, we healed her gut lining. We removed the foods that were triggering her immune system. For Rachel, that was gluten, dairy, and processed sugar. And we added more gut healing foods in there: warm, spiced soups and stews, fermented foods like sauerkraut and coconut yogurt, anti-inflammatory spices like turmeric, ginger, cumin, coriander, fennel. We used Ayurvedic herbs specific to her constitution to support her digestive fire and to soothe that inflammation. I also recommended a synergistic blend I formulated called Inflammation Relief. It has curcumin, but it also has boswellia, which reduces inflammatory pathways and supports joint health. Ginger, which calms digestive inflammation and supports our circulation. And black pepper extract to make sure the curcumin is actually absorbed. These herbs work together, not in isolation. And that's the power of a synergistic formula. Each one addresses inflammation from a different angle, and it supports your gut, your joints, your cellular health all at once. And that formula actually also has guduchi, amla, other really powerhouse herbs to address that oxidation and inflammation struggle that so many of us have. Third, we stabilized her blood sugar. And that was huge for Rachel. She had been skipping breakfast, grabbing coffee, then crashing by 10 a.m., and she was reaching for whatever was really fast for a light breakfast. So we built her a simple protocol: protein and healthy fat at breakfast, no more just coffee, balanced meals every 4 hours, no naked carbs, meaning always pairing carbs with a protein or a healthy fat. And within 2 weeks, her energy stabilized and her bloating started decreasing. Fourth, we supported her stress response. Rachel's nervous system was stuck in fight or flight. So we added 10 minutes of breath work every morning to activate her parasympathetic nervous system. I also gave her our Unwind tea, which is a blend of adaptogenic herbs that are specifically formulated to calm the nervous system without sedating you. It has ashwagandha, which helps keep our cortisol more regulated, along with calming herbs that support the body's natural stress response throughout the day. And because Rachel was Vata Pitta, she also struggled with disturbed sleep. Vata types often do. So I recommended deep sleep tea in the evening because it blends our body's natural transition into rest with herbs that don't force sleep, but really help us calm the mind, calm the digestive system, and prepare the nervous system for deeper, more restorative sleep. And then we also built a consistent evening routine with self-massage using warm oils. That's another Ayurvedic practice that's incredibly grounding for Vata types. And I talk about it a lot in my book, The Inflammation Code, these self-care rituals. And finally, we built rhythm and consistency. In Ayurveda, we call this dinacharya, the daily routine. And your body thrives on that predictability of that routine. In my book, I have this entire big chapter on it, where I dive into all those self-care rituals that are detoxing, they're anti-aging, and they support our longevity. These aren't just wellness trends. They're ancient practices designed to keep your body in balance for decades. Rachel's new rhythm looked like this. In the morning, she started with warm lemon water or warm ginger tea. She had breathwork time, supplements, and a nourishing breakfast. Midday was her largest meal, and she ate it calmly, away from screens. Every evening meant a light dinner before 7 p.m., a calming tea, a self-care ritual, and bed by 10 p.m. Nothing extreme, nothing overwhelming, just consistent daily signals to her body that said, you're safe, you can heal now. This is what I do with all my clients. I sit with them and customize a plan based on their primary and secondary elemental design. This is the ancient wisdom's treasure chest. It's a deep knowledge about us based on the 5 elements. Within 1 week, Rachel's bloating decreased by about 40%. She told me, I'm waking up flat and I'm staying flat through most of the day. I haven't felt this good in years. Within 3 weeks, her afternoon fatigue had lifted. She wasn't crashing anymore. Within 6 weeks, her brain fogs cleared. And she could think clearly again. She could remember names, finish tasks without getting distracted. And within 3 months, her bloating was 90% gone. Her energy was stable all day. Her joint stiffness disappeared. Her anxiety calmed significantly. She lost 12 pounds without trying. It just came off as the inflammation decreased. As her follow-up, she said something I will never forget. I spent 2 years thinking my body was broken. I went to 4 different doctors. I tried every elimination diet, and no one told me that all of my symptoms were connected. No one told me that my bloating was inflammation. No one told me that I needed to address the system, not just the symptom. She didn't need 7 different solutions. She needed one root solution. Calm the inflammation, support the gut, regulate the system. And once she did that, everything else fell into place. So imagine this, 6 months from now, you're getting dressed in the morning, you're putting on your jeans, the one that used to feel tight by afternoon, and they fit comfortably all day. You eat breakfast, lunch, dinner, and there's no bloating, no discomfort, no looking down at your stomach and wondering, why is this happening again? You go through your day and realize you're not thinking about digestion anymore. You're not planning your outfit around whether you'll bloat. You're not declining social invitations because you're worried about how you'll feel after eating. You have energy. Stable, consistent energy that doesn't crash at 2 p.m. Your brain is clear. You're finishing sentences, remembering things, feeling sharp. Your mood is stable. The low-level anxiety that used to hum under everything, it's gone. And when someone asks you, how did you do it? How did you finally figure this out? You say, I stopped treating my bloating as a digestive problem. I started treating it as inflammation. And when I addressed the root cause, when I healed my gut, supported my nervous system, stabilized my blood sugar, and built a daily rhythm, everything changed. That's what's possible. Not because you're restricting everything, not because you're taking 47 different supplements, not because you're following some extreme protocol, but because you gave your body what it actually needed to regulate and heal. So let me leave you with some key points from today. Point 1, your bloating isn't just about what you ate. It's a signal that your gut lining is under stress and inflammation is present there. Point number 2, bloating rarely shows up alone. If you have bloating plus fatigue, brain fog, mood changes, or joint pain, they're all connected. They're all expressions of gut-driven inflammation. Point 3, probiotics alone usually won't fix it because the problem isn't just bacterial imbalance. It's barrier integrity, nervous system regulation, blood sugar stability, and inflammatory balance, all working together. Point number 4, when you address the system, everything shifts. Healing that gut, calming that inflammation, and supporting your elemental design. Building that daily rhythm around it, and then watching your symptoms transform is so powerful. So here's your homework this week. Step number 1, take the elemental design quiz. You can go to drshivani.com right now. Find out your primary element, and you'll get the bigger quiz to discover your secondary elements. This is your foundation for understanding everything else. Step number 2, notice your patterns. Now that you know your type, watch how your bloating shows up. When does it happen? Is it after certain foods? At certain times of day? During stressful periods? Does it match your elemental pattern? And then step number 3, check in with the other symptoms. Do you also have fatigue, brain fog, mood changes? Write these down and see if they're connected. Step number 4, choose one action to support your gut this week based on your type. Vata types. It's about eating at the exact same time every day for 1 week and adding in warm cooked foods. You can also try 10 minutes, even 5 minutes of grounding breath work. Then Pitta types. Remove one heating food, whether it's coffee, spicy food, or alcohol, and add cooling foods like cucumber or coconut. And then practice softening your intensity as well. And then finally, Kapha types. Start adding movement every morning. So try lighter meals, incorporate warming spices like ginger, black pepper, or cinnamon. Just one action, one signal to your gut that says, I'm listening and I understand your language now. And if you want to kickstart this right now today, I've created a free 7-day inflammation detox challenge. It's at 7dayinflammationdetox.com. It's just 7 days of simple Ayurvedic-based practices that you can use to start calming inflammation and supporting your gut immediately. Now, if you're looking at your symptoms and you're thinking, I need more than 7 days, I need a personalized plan, I do offer a free 20-minute discovery call to everybody. I've loved doing these with many of you already because it's so cool to hear what the struggle is and how I can help you or who I can refer you to. We can talk about what's happening in your body. We can map out your elemental design. We can figure out if working together makes sense and if you want to do a full-on consultation. So you can book that at shivanigupta.com. Because while these principles that I'm sharing apply broadly, your body is unique. Your constitution is unique. And sometimes you need someone who can see your specific pattern and help you address it at the root. Next week, we're going to keep diving into these topics around inflammation, brain, gut health, all these topics that are so important to us as we're entering midlife, perimenopause, menopause, and beyond. Because once you understand how your gut and brain communicate, you'll never think about mental clarity the same way again. Until then, listen to your gut, literally. Your bloating is trying to tell you something. It's time to hear it. I'll see you guys next week. Thank you for joining me on the Inflammation Code podcast. To learn more about it, visit drshivani.com and you'll see all the notes about my podcast and about me. If you love this episode, please share it with someone in your life. Please leave a review for it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Those reviews, those likes, those shares help us get this message of integrative medicine and such power over our health to the world around us. So thank you so much for joining me this week, and I'll see you guys next week.